The sidelines of a prachar cum campaign trail, you should say both, because 9 years of the Modi Sarkar, so he's talking about it, and also building up to the Rajasthan elections in Lok Sabha 2024. But it's also Chartered Accountants Day. So to the Chartered Accountant in him, wish you greetings on Chartered Accountants Day, Piyush Goyal ji. Always a pleasure to speak with you. Now let me ask you, this prachar, this prasar or the campaign is happening for Rajasthan or for Lok Sabha 2024?
No, this is a part of our national campaign to thank the voters of India, to thank the people of India for reposing trust in the Bharatiya Janata Party, in the Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi ji, by giving him an absolute majority twice, both in 14 and 19, so that he could serve the people with a decisive government, so that he could bring a new paradigm of growth, progress and prosperity for the people, so that he could empower 1.4 billion Indians, 140 crore Indians, to dream big, to aim high and work with a sense of duty to make India a developed nation.
We are having this conversation late in the evening in Bharatpur. You have been to Alwar, you've been to Rajasthan, Jaipur, so a lot of places in Rajasthan. So what's the feeling?
I think the people are fed up of this corrupt Ashok Gehlot government. Many people call it a Gehloot government. Every minister, every MLA, I think has realized that they're going to lose the next election, so they are on a rampage of corruption. The law and order is deteriorated. The kind of heinous crimes that we hear of in Rajasthan, the fact that this has become a safe harbor for criminals running away from other states, the fact that every transfer posting looks suspect, papers are getting leaked almost by the dozens. All of this leads to a very, very dissatisfied people, completely disenchanted by the hollow promises that Mr. Gehlot keeps making, to the extent that in Jaipur a lot of people told me this is a Panjikaran government, that means a registration government. They keep making all sorts of announcements right from 2018, when in their manifesto they made lots of promises but broke every one of them. Just keep registering potential beneficiaries but never deliver.
But what's the option for the people of Rajasthan?
A strong, resurgent Bharatiya Janata Party, once again providing a good double-engine government with Prime Minister Narendra Modi overseeing the development activities of the state, a government in the state which will implement the several initiatives that Prime Minister Modi has introduced in the country, rather than creating roadblocks.
Karnataka didn't have a problem with PM Modi, but they had a problem with the local leadership. Somewhere the voter is now becoming discerning between what works at the center and what they want in the state. Do you have a problem of a diffused leadership, no clear leader in Rajasthan?
Today the people of Karnataka of Rajasthan are so fed up with this Gehlot government that they are looking for a change. The Bharatiya Janata Party has always had a galaxy of leaders in Rajasthan. And in the BJP, the good part is it's always the nation first, party next, and self last. So all our leaders are working together as a team, very committed to the people of Rajasthan. And I can assure you that the BJP will provide a stable, strong, and honest government to Rajasthan, which will change the future and the fortunes of Rajasthan.
UCC, are you for it, against it, and do you believe India is ready for it?
Absolutely for the Uniform Civil Code. We are waiting to see what shape it takes, how it comes up. Uttarakhand had set up a very high-level committee headed by Justice retired Srimati Ranjana Desai. They've come out with a report. Let us see how that works. Let us see how the public reacts to that report. and let the situation evolve. I think people are jumping the gun too much. Ultimately, it's a directive principle of the Constitution. 5 times the Supreme Court has suggested to the governments of the day that this is something which will be good for India, which is the need of the hour, and which will bring more cohesion to the nation's polity.
Harish Rawatji says it's an exercise in futility because if you're looking at something at the center, why bring it in the state? And if you have decided to go the state route, why talk about it at the center? So this is nothing but yet another poll gimmick.
Well, for Harish Rawatji, these may be poll games, but for the Bharatiya Janata Party and its leadership, these are issues of national importance. These are issues that concern very often our sisters and daughters. After all, when we remove triple talaq from India, imagine the sigh of relief that crores of our Muslim sisters and daughters had, who were being persecuted, who were being wronged upon indiscriminately for decades. And when on the other hand, so many other governments with Islamic states have already made triple talaq illegal, including our neighbors like Pakistan and Bangladesh, or Egypt, where the Honorable Prime Minister went recently, did it some 70, 80 years ago. I think it's only the appeasement politics of the Congress and their friendly parties which opposes progressive laws.
So you agree with him on the Pasmanda issue, 11.4% of the Muslim population treated as vote banks. That's what the PM said.
Undoubtedly. I think Prime Minister Modi has made a very, very important and significant observation. I do hope the leaders of the Muslim community will reflect deeply on what he said and will work towards a better future for every single Indian.
So as leader of House in the Rajya Sabha, are you looking at it coming in the monsoon session or in the winter session?
We'll wait to see what the concerned ministry decides.
Now let's reflect on the US state visit and why is it so historic? Because the last 4-5 years, there have been efforts that have been made, but there have been roadblocks. One of the biggest, I'll come to the roadblocks, but let me ask you, why is it so historic? From your perspective, because you saddle multiple ministries and a lot of them come into the domain of the MOU side.
We have watched international visits, certainly of leaders from India to other parts of the world, of leaders from other countries coming to India, and I would go to the extent of saying international visits of leaders from many countries to other countries. To my mind, this visit of Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi to America was historic in several counts. For example, at the UN, he broke all records with people from 180 countries participating at the UN headquarters. Look at the message of solidarity and oneness to the world population that went out that day on 21st June from New York. The fact that President Biden spent nearly 3 days with Prime Minister Modi is an unparalleled situation. This was possibly only the second state visit that an Indian Prime Minister has had. After Mr. Manmohan Singh's visit after the nuclear deal, this is the only
in about 15 years.
Second visit. More importantly, this is the first time an Indian leader has addressed US Congress twice, joining the ranks of illustrious leaders like Nelson Mandela or Winston Churchill or Netanyahu. The kind of response that was given by the business community of the US was unparalleled. We had every top company CEO either bilaterally meeting the Prime Minister and making huge commitments of investment and jobs in India, or participating in the state dinner or the several lunches that were held in his honor. So in a way, the US government, that is the political leadership, the US administration, the bureaucracy, the businesses in the United States of America and the people of America, particularly the Indian diaspora. They were all in it to make this a historic visit. And the outcomes that were there, the kind of agreements that have come up, for example, GE giving us an aircraft jet engine with technology is a first for them. In world history, never before have two large, let's say, sparring nations on trade front, who have had several court cases in the WTO, the World Trade Organization, and some of them for decades. It is unparalleled that bilaterally 6 WTO disputes get resolved. It was impossible but for the huge trust that President Biden and Prime Minister Modi have been able to build between themselves and between the governments.
No, but here's what the Congress is saying, or the opposition is saying: the jet engine technology is old tech. It's not. It's redundant tech, and that the WTO or perhaps some of the engagements have happened, like Washington Apple's import duty reduced by 20%. It's going to directly impact growers closer home. So there has been a huge compromise that's been made.
Well, I think Angur Khatte. The Congress only continues to display its lack of understanding and a complete inability to understand even basic commerce and economics. Surprisingly, some of those comments came from erstwhile commerce ministers, which shocks me even more. The rate of duty on apples continues to remain the same, what it always was. In fact, we have recently introduced a minimum import price to ensure that the apples that come into the country, along with the rate of duty, import duty that's charged on it, will always ensure that our farmers get a very fair price and a good deal. The United States of America had put in certain additional duties on steel and aluminium, which India exported to the US. We had retaliated with certain additional duties on our end, on products which are coming in from the US. So that was an additional duty which did not impact our imports. It only substituted imports from the US with imports from some other country. So our aggregate imports didn't change. The US lost market share, some other country gained it. But the protection to our farmers remained the same. When the US agreed to ensure that our steel and aluminium imports into the US, so exports from India will be allowed without that additional duty which they had imposed on steel and aluminium, logically we have to reduce the retaliatory duty to a corresponding extent. So this was an additional duty, didn't impact our imports at all, just substituted from one country to the other. They removed the additional duties, which means our steel and aluminium will get greater market access in the US. We removed the additional duties, which will give them a chance to get back their market share, possibly substituting what started coming from Turkey. Now, I'm sure I'd rather have an apple from America than I'd have an apple from Turkey. And so would 140 crore Indians, sans the few ignorant Congress leaders.
But WTO, Prime Minister mentioned that a lot of issues, thorny issues of the WTO have also been ironed out. Tell us about that, because that was one breaking point. It proved to be a lot of agreements that could have been signed. They just insertions in the clauses. I can talk about it because I was there in Geneva when you were hammering that out. So now where do things stand?
Well, I think India has shown to the world that we can be a trusted partner, that rather than fight on legal matters, dialogue and diplomacy can help resolve issues much better. This has been Prime Minister Modi's consistent stand, be it trade issues or even geopolitical issues like the Russia-Ukraine conflict. He has once again proved his ability to negotiate a good deal for the country, to be able to navigate very, very difficult areas of trade and commerce so that there can be a win-win solution for both countries. There were certain thorny issues which were pending for decades. For example, there are cases against Indian steel exports to the US, which have now been done away with. Similarly, there were fights between both countries on renewable energy programs. We had cases against their programs, they had cases against our programs. We've been able to bilaterally close all of them in the interest of sustainability and promotion of clean energy, renewable energy, which I think is the collective effort across the world, something that everybody should be happy and proud about. They had filed cases and won. We had lost in the WTO on the several export incentives and export promotion measures that India had adopted over the years. The United States has agreed to drop that case also. So there are wins on both sides. The US gains some, India gains some. They had won 3 cases, we had won 3 cases. By bilaterally settling them, we have written a new chapter in world history, particularly world economics and world commerce, which will be quoted and will resonate for, I think, several decades in the future.
So does India get a seat at the high table at the UN Security Council for permanent place? Are those 180 countries which came to support us for yoga, are they going to back UN reforms?
By and large, most countries are in support.
2/3 is what we need.
No, most countries are in support of India getting a permanent seat at the Security Council. It's the veto power of our neighboring country which has held back this. All the other countries in the Security Council, permanent members, are in favor of India having a seat at the permanent body. And I do hope good sense will prevail in the future and we will get our rightful place.
How much of this America-India, AI, is a byproduct of the animosity with China or geopolitics? Let's say geopolitics, or how much of it?
Absolutely no connection with that. Very often I'm asked this question about the China +1 or French shoring or people looking at moving out of China and coming to India. I always believe that India stands on its own merits. India is a very, very high potential country in terms of our demographic dividend, in terms of the democracy that we are very proud of, in terms of the huge demand that a 140 crore population generates, particularly when the basic needs, which used to be a struggle for many Indians for decades or for generations, have now been taken care of by Prime Minister Modi.
So America-India is happening. Will Canada-India happen anytime soon, given the nature of the geopolitics?
Progress, Anand, in our negotiations with Canada. My last visit to Canada was very outcome-oriented, very fruitful. We came up with a broad framework on which we can have an early progress trade agreement. My colleague minister there, Mary Ng, and I have a weekly video conference in which we take stock of the progress of negotiations. I'm very confident, or if I may borrow a phrase from the Mumbai Stock Exchange or the National Stock Exchange, I'm very bullish
about
that
it.
we're going to see a lot of progress in the several free trade agreements that are under negotiation.
I specifically asked Canada because with Pakistan we follow a policy of talks and terror can't go hand in hand, trade and terror can't go hand in hand beyond a certain absolute important ones. So with Canada also, does geopolitics, will that weigh in on the trade aspect? I know there is an effort to try and keep them separate.
Well, I think Canada is not about, in any way, can be bracketed with a country like Pakistan. There are a few misguided elements who may off and on create problems there, but that's not big enough for us to stop our trade and business relations and stop creating jobs in India for millions of people who otherwise would lose that potential to expand economic activity in India. We are friendly nations, we are both democracies, and I'm sure we can sort out such issues which are extraneous to trade and commerce bilaterally.
Final 2 questions, Piyush. One of the issues is about where do you have a position on this demand for freeing Hindu temples? We saw what is happening with the Chidambaram temple in Tamil Nadu, state control, domination. The same issue was there in Uttarakhand, but before the polls happened, the government itself withdrew the control, and it did have an electoral impact. Is the government thinking about on this line? Do you have a view on this, or would you want to steer clear? Because religious institutions, when the BJP says it's Hindu hate, the Hindu religious institutions be the only ones that tend to get managed by the state across the country.
Well, I haven't studied the subject in great detail. I'm sure the experts will be looking at it. But I do believe Prime Minister Modi's government never discriminates and believes in equal laws for all people of India and the various faiths that people of India are following. Ideally, the rules, systems and laws should be the same for everyone.
He has great respect for Tamil, but HRNC, Hindu Religious Endowment Board, is only for Hindu institutions and it's practiced in Tamil Nadu. So that's why I asked you
the question. Well, it's unfortunate that we have a government in Tamil Nadu which is openly anti-Hindu, which has never looked after the interests of Hindus. I feel sad that they pretend to be Hindus. They all are religious in their homes. We see some of the marriages that they celebrate. They are pretty much with all the traditions of Hinduism. But somehow the persecution of Hindus in Tamil Nadu is truly a matter of concern. We are concerned that such a wonderful state, such wonderful people, and the Tamil people have had a very, very huge role to play in India's cultural history, our rich heritage and traditions, are being misled by the DMK government. And I do hope Mr. Stalin and his government will stop these efforts to attack the Hindu religion at every possible occasion.
The BJP's target is 300 plus. Final question for Lok Sabha 2024. The target is 300 plus. The opposition is wanting to challenge one candidate per seat in at least 400 seats vis-a-vis the BJP. You think this opposition unity will be...
Anand, I can assure you the BJP never aims small. We are already 300 plus. So our aim will be significantly higher than that. We are working hard across the country, and the love and adulation that the people of India have for Prime Minister Modi lends us to believe that we will do well, we'll get the blessings and the support of large sections of the people across the country, and will do far better than last time and increase our tally so that once again a strong, stable, decisive government, an honest government, a committed government can give direction to the people of India and to the India growth story and give a better future to 140 crore Indians. We welcome the opposition to do as many alliances as they like, but reflect on it. I mean, is the DMK going to add even a single vote outside their own state? Is the Samajwadi Party, Akhilesh Yadav, going to get one vote outside the state of Uttar Pradesh? He should be worried about the losing vote share he has in Uttar Pradesh. But if the DMK
and Congress combined ranks in Tamil Nadu,
they're already there in
if the RJD, and they contest only one candidate per seat.
But they're already in alliance. So what is the difference? This so-called larger alliance is not adding votes to any of their candidates. And RJD,
in fact, will be in Bengal.
Kumar, JDU,
Bengal,
is a
Bihar.
failed alliance. I can assure you that Bihar is a state that's going to give a complete sweep to the BJP. We are aiming for every one of the 40 seats in Bihar. Particularly, the people of Bihar are so disenchanted with the Lalu Yadav, Nitish Kumar combined. They look at Nitish Kumarji as a person who cannot be trusted, somebody who stabbed the back after having won the election, or piggybacking on the BJP, just like Mr. Uddhav Thackeray won his few MLAs on the back of the Modi wave and the leadership of Prime Minister Modi. I think the people of India will never forgive such leaders who do injustice to the vote that they have received. That is an unethical alliance to begin with. It's a corrupt alliance. It's an alliance whose very leader himself is in prison for his misdeeds. It's an alliance which has only brought lawlessness and a complete breakdown of governance in the state of Bihar. Similarly, West Bengal, I don't think Congress and CPM or the left parties have any relevance left. It's a direct contest between Trinamool and BJP. But given the misgovernance, the high level of corruption, the deteriorating law and order situation, and the poverty that you see all across West Bengal, the way the people of West Bengal, who had such a rich cultural history, are today left impoverished and living in misery, they certainly are looking for change. They certainly deserve a change. This time around, I think they'll get a fitting reply from the people of West Bengal. The BJP tally in West Bengal will only increase in the coming Lok Sabha.
Congress is talking of revivals after Karnataka. They're confident about Chhattisgarh. They think they will snatch Madhya Pradesh and perhaps retain Rajasthan. So does that change equations for you?
शेख चिल्ली के सपने तो किसको भी देखने का अधिकार है, उसके ऊपर कोई रोक नहीं.
Piyush ji, thank you so much.
Thank you.
For your time. Always
Lovely
a pleasure
talking to
speaking
you.
with you. Thank you.